let me show you how to figure out how much running your own cold email machine will cost. So I've set up this spreadsheet so you can enter any scenario that you want based on the number of emails you want to send or contacts you want to reach. And you can even work backwards potentially from the number of clients that you want. Although if you don't have benchmarks yet, that's going to be more difficult to do. So I usually start from the top down and figure out exactly what your hard cost is. And after that, I'm even going to show you what you might expect in terms of ROI, or rather, instead of showing you a bunch of gaudy numbers that may or may not seem realistic to you, some extremely conservative numbers that should hopefully inspire you to seriously consider cold email for your own business. So, in month one, I recommend when you're validating an offer, reaching 3,000 to 6,000 contacts. The reason for that is if you do less than that, you're moving too darn slowly. You're not going to learn a whole lot. It's like spending $1 a day on Facebook ads. It's not maybe technically wrong, but it's also not right. You're not going to get where you want to go. You send more than that, you might just be burning through data before you've figured out what works. So it's much better to be in this 3,000 to 6,000 range. You can bump that up a little bit maybe, but generally 3,000 to 6,000, figure out what works and then scale that. So therefore, in scenario 2, I say, okay, for my example, the first scenario is I'm going to reach 6,000 contacts in the first month. Hopefully during that time, I validate my offer. And then after that, I'm going to send more. And this scenario is, let's say you just build a relatively big list, but you want to reach it over multiple months. Let's actually say 150,000, but you want to reach them over 4 months, just for something different. So, okay, from that, you can see how many contacts you need to reach per month. Based on the number of emails in a campaign, we're going to use 3 as a benchmark. Lots of campaigns run up to 5. You even go beyond that. You might have as few as 2 if you're running something like an insane risk reversal or a call to action to some sort of video resource, a short video. Because if they're not reacting to a ridiculous risk reversal or something super low commitment like a video after 2 emails, you probably don't need the third. So let's use 3 as a benchmark. Now, of course, you can play around with this and enter your own numbers. Essentially, what we've figured out is the number of emails per month that you need to send. Okay, let's say you're going to send those during the 22 business days. You're not going to send Saturday or Sunday. If you want, you can change this number as well. You can do whatever you want. And that as you ramp up, you're going to reach 25 emails per account per day. You could push this to 30. You could stop this at 20. So if you want, you can change this number as well. But I'm going to leave this here. So great, now you know how many email accounts you need. You need 33 email accounts in this scenario. And then when you're going to scale up, you need to grow that to 82. Or maybe you need to grow that to 205. Depends on how many people you want to reach. Again, related to your per month contact count, reached contacts count. And the next decision you have to make is, okay, those 33 accounts for scenario 1, am I going to put those across 2 emails per domain? So andrew@easyinternetbillions.com and andrew.walton@easyinternetbillions.com, or am I going to do a third email address on every domain? 2 is the gold standard. It's the safest. It has the best deliverability. I actually often use 3 at this point because for my own setup, I don't see a significant or really any difference in performance, and I don't mind saving on the domain cost. I also don't mind taking this risk because if at some point one domain goes down, I figure that over the sum of hundreds of accounts and tens of thousands of emails sent, I'm coming out ahead even if the occasional account gets burnt. So you could put 3 here and then say, okay, well, we need 11 domains in this scenario, or we need 16 domains, actually 17 domains in this scenario, but it's rounding down for some reason, but close enough. So let's do the cheap option. So, okay, now you have the next decision to make. So you see how we're going step by step, and then whenever there's a fork in the road, you can go left or you can go right, and then you come to the next decision. And by going through this decision tree, you end up at what your hard cost for domains is going to be and what your hard cost for accounts is going to be. So, okay, you can use .com domains and similar, so .co would be another example, or you can do sort of .biz class domains. .info would be another. And if we're not talking about Black Friday sales or other sale events, that's typically going to be about $13 for a .com type domain for a year and about $9 for a .biz and similar. So the performance also, there's not really a large difference in terms of the technical performance of one versus the other. There's not a, you could argue that maybe there's a first impression difference versus from receiving an email from a .com versus a .biz, but if you have a good offer, like the people who are on the edge who are going to decide to work with you are not based on the ending of your domain. I would argue that those probably aren't people that you want to have. So, I mean, you be the judge. You can mix. I mix and match. Some people swear like .com and only .com. It's clearly the gold standard, right? But you get to be the judge. You can say, okay, I want to save the domain cost. I'm going to get 11 .biz domains. Or you can say, I want everything to be as optimized as possible. I'm going to spring a little bit extra for .com. Both are totally valid. This is not the place to get stuck, okay? This is not the decision that is going to make or break your business. It's your offer. It's actually getting the setup done, okay? This is also probably not going to be the make it or break it piece. If you're feeling antsy, just do it 2. 2 is safe. You're good to go. If you have any doubts whatsoever, just do two accounts per domain. Now, okay, so you have your total domain cost. Now let's talk about your account cost. So if you use the standard Google Workspace account, then you're paying $7.20 per month per account. So in scenario 1, where you only have 33 accounts, that's reasonable, $235 per month. If you scale that up and you need 200 accounts, now that's, you know, for someone that's still perfectly reasonable, but if you're just getting started and you don't have a lot of revenue, $1,500 a month is not insignificant, right? So you have to be the judge of that. I do have my own setup option, which is significantly less than Google Workspace, and it scales with volume. So this is the one place where if you play around with this spreadsheet, you might not have the perfect number in this cell, because if you have just a couple of accounts, 20 accounts, 30 accounts, then it's going to be around $4, $4.50 per account, whereas if you have 200 accounts, it's going to be closer to $2.50. So just keep that in mind if you're playing around with this, and then in the middle, it's in the middle. But regardless, it's much more affordable than Google Workspace. I do test Google Workspace accounts. I still have some running up against my Supersize Your Sending accounts. They all seem to perform pretty much the same with no obvious discernible differences one way or the other. So I mean, you can be the judge. We can talk about this if you want to use this setup. The cool thing about Supersize Your Sending, I would argue, is that if you want to use this and get the cost savings, is that we'll set all of this up for you for free. You just pay the hard cost for the domains, and you pay the cost of the accounts. You don't have to pay for setup. If you want to set this up yourself with Google Workspace, I have an 8-step walkthrough for that. It'll probably take you about 90 minutes. I can do it in 60. It'll probably take you about 90 minutes to set up around 20 accounts. And there's sort of a non-linear scale from there. If you want to get someone on Fiverr to set up those accounts for you, it'll probably cost between $5 or $10 per account to get set up. So you have to factor that in as well. Either your time or the expense of having someone else do it for you. If someone else does it for you, they're probably not going to do it as fast as the walkthrough, which is why it'll cost you know, $5 to $10 per account, but maybe you pass them the walkthrough. Maybe you can get them on hourly. In any case, this will lead you to the grand total for this initial setup. The way I have these formulas is assuming that you're using a Supersize Your Sending account. If you want to check the Google, just change the formula here, and you can see the difference. And that's it for a tech piece. The next piece that you need, of course, is a list. The one thing I haven't included in here is Smart Lead versus Instant Lead, like the platform that you're going to use to actually send the emails from. Smart Lead starts at $94 a month. That's the platform I use. And you're covered for, I think it's 30,000 contacts. And plenty more emails than 45,000. I think it's like 150,000, but don't hold me to that. If you want more contacts than 30,000, I believe it's 30,000, then the price does go up from there. But, you know, at that point, by the time you email your 30,000 and first contact, you should already be making money from cold email. So don't worry about that yet. But that's not included in this table. I'm just talking about these particular pieces of the domains, the accounts, and the list. So then for the list, we can also estimate what are your costs for that. Now, you may have seen my walkthrough of building a list of just under 26,000 contacts for, I think it's $143 and 3,227 for like $22. That is using a specific technique with Apollo.ai. So for the first 6,000 contacts, that might be $25,000. Sorry, $25,000. Good one. $25. After you plumb Apollo and you use that technique to its fullest extent and you change platforms and you get your 100,000th contact, you're probably not still using that technique, and you're probably going to be paying more for the data. It's just the reality of it. Again, with those initial Apollo contacts that you've gotten for dirt cheap, you should be getting clients and should be putting money back into your marketing budget, where this incremental increase in cost isn't going to be too much of a problem for you at this stage. So this is just an estimate, but you can look at different platforms and different sources, and you can put your own number in here and say, okay, if my cost per 1,000 is going to be $59 or $100 or whatever it's going to be, and you can calculate that out and say, okay, I'm getting really expensive data. It's $200 per 1,000. You can still figure out your all-in cost, and you can still do the ROI calculation and say, does it make sense for me to spend, you know, $200 per 1,000 or whatever the number happens to be? That's the beauty of this spreadsheet. You can try all the different things. you can put whatever you want into here and see, does this make business sense for your specific business, not for my business, for your business. So, okay, you have your all-in costs. Now, hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully that was valuable. I think even more interesting is what happens when you compare these costs versus the potential return. So I'm going to take some extremely, like the first example I think is downright silly. Let's say you sell something for $9 through cold email. You're going to do some sort of introductory service. If you're in, I don't know, SEO land, maybe you're setting up someone on Google Places, like getting their map listing set up. If you're doing email marketing, maybe the first email is a $9 email or something like that. It could be anything. Or you're in SaaS, or you're selling a product, or whatever it happens to be. This is probably not what you're doing through cold email. I'm not saying that you should do this as your foot in the door. I think scenarios 2 and 3 are much more common, and you might have a $2,500 or a $5,000 initial thing, or it could be more than that. It could be $30,000. I'm specifically choosing ultra-conservative examples to show you that even with these kind of frankly ridiculous examples, you can still get a significant positive ROI on cold email with this sort of setup, right? $9 initial sale, and your lifetime client value is all of $97. It's like, okay, even with that terrible business model, this can be profitable. Saying that, okay, it's a $9 offer, making one sale per 1,000 contacts is not at all unreasonable. You should be doing much better than that. So with this list that you have up here, it's taking these numbers, this list size, how many sales are you expected to get from that list at this conversion rate? How much initial revenue are you going to make? How much total revenue are you going to make? And what is your ROI versus this cost? So you can see that even with this absurd example, you're almost quadrupling your money. Now, if you are getting a little bit more into realistic land, say this scenario where your foot in the door is $500, again, it might be $2,500. It could be anything, but let's say you're using this specifically as your foot in the door because it's relatively easy to say yes to a $500 business service, not as a retainer, but as like a one-time thing, but your client lifetime value now is 35,000 because either you have long-term retainers or you're building funnels or something that has a big time one-off cost. Doesn't really matter. But let's say that your conversion rate is also really not that great. 1 out of 10,000 contacts. The reason I'm showing you this is because so many people are fixated on conversion rate when the only thing that actually matters at the end of the day is ROI. I don't care if it takes me 10,000 contacts to make a sale if I'm multiplying my money in this sort of way. The only exception to this would be if you're in such a small market where there are only 10,000 contacts or something like that. Then you need to be focused more on nurture, and yes, you have to increase your conversion rate, but outside of that scenario, then you're doing pretty well here. And let's even say, like if your lifetime value is all of $5,000, you're still crushing it, right? Like these are not outlandish expectations. And here's the sort of middle of the path of the conservative estimates. With still a low lifetime, like your CLVs should be much higher than $97 and $3,000 and $5,000, right? So still, you're compared to spending $1,700 and you're bringing in 15 grand. Again, with the caveat that I am missing the smart lead piece, so it's technically a little bit lower than this, but it's not screwing up the calculation. We could add $100 here, $100 here, and $400 here, and it would be fine. So that is one, how to figure out what you need to make this, get this set up, get it running, make it work, and what you can potentially expect on the back end. I don't know your business, I don't know your offer, I don't know how good you are at selling, I don't know any of those things. I'm making the point that if you do some cold email and you do it just so-so, then there's a lot of potential here. And I think that is worth exploring. It doesn't matter if you use my stuff or do it yourself or use someone else's stuff. Like this allows you to actually achieve automation, semi-automation, and scale in a way that very few platforms, very few marketing channels allow you to achieve. So that's that. Again, if you want my 8-step setup SOP, if you want my list building, like the contacts for under 1 cent walkthrough, if you want any of that, if you want the how to create a demand generating offer training, you can either, I don't know where you're seeing this video, but you can either probably comment below it or click a button below it and get those. Those are all online for free for you to access and exploit to the fullest extent that you can. So let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you want any of those resources, and I look forward to hearing what you do with your own cold